Hi, I'm Prophet Azad, and you're watching Atheist Edge.
Okay, Joel. We're talking about whether being a lifelong atheist, was that part of it?
Okay, well, I got some shit for you.
Go for it.
What were you doing before that?
Well, this is going to just sound
chicken.
crazy insane, but for the last 10 years, I've actually quit it now to do this, but I did a lot of Argentine tango.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I saw that.
I know.
A lot of what?
Argentine tango.
You don't do that
Interesting.
I don't know what that sex position is, but I'd try it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's a double down donkey. You know, it basically is
Reverse
that.
cowgirl, Argentine tango.
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
double twisting dismount that gets me, I think.
It's always the dismount.
Yeah.
They were pronouncing it wrong. I thought there was something a whole lot different.
Yeah,
going on
I know. I wanted to go.
Now, what did you do as a career?
I was in the advertising business. I owned an agency that worked for attorneys that wanted to find clients.
So
And
you
I've
were
done
a
every-
madman?
I was an ad man, and I've done everything from car accidents to pharmaceutical.
So can we call you Don Draper?
What's that reference?
Madman.
Madman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to come up with your... How often do you renew your material? Do you do the same set for what period of time and then scrap it and start something new?
You constantly write, and you do an awful lot of open mic so that you can test out new material and let the market decide really. You know, things that I think are absolutely hilarious may not resonate with an audience. More often than not, it does. But my goal is to get as much humor in a short period of time. So you're constantly writing, you're constantly testing. Actually, it's kind of like advertising. You know, you come up with an idea, a pitch in advertising, and you try it in front of a focus group, and you modify it slightly so that you get a higher direct response rate.
Can you think of a joke that you thought was just going to kill and it bombed? And
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I can tell you that when you write, the rule is that you try to be personal about it.
Sure.
And this actually happened about a week ago. I was doing a bit about something that had actually happened in my life. And it was about an ex-girlfriend of mine who was 27 years old. And the bit is, I'm totally obsessed with Disney. I'm an Ariel. Harry Potter, Slytherin, and Dom and Sub. I'm a submissive.
What's our address again? No, I'm just joking.
It was a don't thank me, just spank me moment.
Son of a bitch. That's beautiful.
Now, but what happened was, in the audience, there was a mother-daughter, and the daughter, I think, was probably 27-ish. Mom was not impressed. So they got up and they left. Okay.
It's comedy, god damn it.
It's comedy.
Everyone's
and-
gonna get. You should be, even as atheists. I get mad at Steve Harvey, Russell Brand, Trevor Noah for shit talking atheists, but really they're just doing comedy. You know, you should never get your butt hurt because eventually they're gonna come around to you, because comedy is offensive. It's designed to be. Even it's the last bastion where, if it's done in a comic context, even like 9/11 jokes or AIDS jokes or even maybe racism, because it's on stage, it is done in context. It's a different animal than doing it anywhere else, right?
I find it to be a challenge that I like a lot. to take material that many people would think is so dark that it couldn't possibly be funny and flip it around.
That's what I loved about your set. You challenged, and you didn't go. You took something that was dark and said it's really not that dark. We can talk about this. We don't have to treat it so taboo.
I have a bit I do that talks about anti-vaxxers. And my premise is some kids really shouldn't be vaccinated. And a lot of times that's when the chill starts. The kids have it too easy. That the world is gonna toss them around like a pork pat pinata at a pit bull party.
That's a
And,
tongue twister.
and what I think is that the polio vaccine took way too much of the challenge out of some of these kids' lives. Braces on your teeth? Meet braces on your legs.
Yes.
Iron Man. Meet Iron Lung.
Iron lung. Yeah, I knew it.
Participation certificate. Meet death certificate. I think that we don't really think through the benefits of not vaccinating. It could mean smaller classrooms in our overcrowded schools. It could mean shorter lines at Six Flags Over Texas. And most importantly to me, it means fewer screaming children bothering me while I'm trying to enjoy my chocolate molten cake at Chili's.
To think about just what you said. Now imagine that you're saying that to a hypersensitive PC crowd, though. What's the first thing they're going to accuse you of? Eugenics, right?
I...
They're going to do what's the not Hanlon's razor? What's the other one?
Occam's razor.
No, not Occam's razor.
Gillette's razor?
Huh?
Gillette's?
Not Gillette. Not Gillette's razor.
Hey, you just gave him a bit.
It's Godwin's law.
That's not even a razor!
Given enough time, every discussion will devolve into someone accusing the other one of being a Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
That's Godwin's law. And as soon as someone accuses you of being a Nazi or anything resembling a Nazi, you win automatically.
It's an automatic win.
Yeah, I'm thinking the hypersensitive PC crowd would accuse you. They would get up and walk out in this environment because of the eugenics implication.
I had a question. I'll wait.
Sure.
You said you only been doing this for 3 months. Did you have public speaking before this? And how do you view the crowd? Do you see them naked, or do you see them with angel wings? Or
I require everyone in the audience to be naked.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of limits your market. I'll give you that.
Okay.
No, I mean, I've done some acting in my life. I've been in a couple movies. I've done some theater. And in my mind, what I do is a character. The character is me, but it's a hyper version of me. The thing about people walking out because they think that it's eugenics, fuck them. Jonathan
Yes.
Swift back in the 1700s did a modest proposal where he suggested that the solution to the famine in Ireland was to sell children for rich people to eat. It is classic literature. It's satire. If you're not going to get the satire, then maybe you need to get up and you need to walk out. Because if you think that's a problem, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yes.
Well, you're doing the same thing that Andy Kaufman did. What Andy Kaufman used to do is he would go do a comedy skit, and he would intentionally try to be as rude to the audience as possible.
I don't think that's what
Carl
Carl
to get him to
doing.
boo him because he wants to push the envelope. That was his goal in life. what was that one character of his at the very end?
Yeah.
Ferrari or something like that?
Yeah, with the glasses and the fake beard.
He'd go in there and basically just insult
Clifton,
everyone, and he wanted
That's
to
it.
do that to that was his stick, was to, I'm gonna find some way to offend as many as possible. Andrew Dice Clay, you know.
I don't
there were
think
people-
Carl's
What I'm
trying for that so much. Maybe toying with it, but the Kaufman is a whole different
He didn't
genre.
even call himself a comedian. He called himself a song and dance man. He didn't like the term comedian.
Right.
Yeah.
He would get on stage and just open up a novel, chapter 1, and just read until everyone left.
You know, I do have a worldview, and I express it through comedy. But what I really hope happens is that on the ride home, people think of a line like praying for the victims of a church tragedy is like shooting up for the victims of a heroin overdose. If that resonates with someone and it causes a discussion after the show, that is the best show I've ever had. Are there sensitive subjects? I had an exercise one time where I wanted to come up with a taboo subject. Good luck. And this is probably going to kill this routine because it will depress people. A long time ago, 35 years ago, my brother committed suicide with a handgun. And I wanted to come up with a bit that could speak to suicide and certainly not promote suicide, but to allow people to see any subject and not freeze up about it. The way that the bit starts is life is hard, overwhelming even. Sometimes I've just got to take a deep breath and make the moment about me. I'll get a massage. I'll get a manicure. I'll plan my suicide. Now, through the rest of the bit, I've lost the audience there. No one wants to think about suicide.
No.
But if they can come back from that, this may be that moment that they're going to have a discussion on the ride home. I want people to laugh during the show and think after the show.
I remember someone said, it's the most taboo things that you can do. Maybe think of, you've heard of the Rorschach test where they have all the ink blots and stuff. And they put it in front of a kid or somebody or something, what do you see here? And what they're basically looking for is, they know there's a real problem if all of a sudden you look at it, it's like, oh, I see guns and shootings and stabbings and all violence. It's guns and beating up and anything violent, blood and stuff. That's a bad thing. Or if that's boobies and dicks and fucking, if it's sex, everything's sex what they see. But the scary thing is when it's both of those together. You put sex and violence, and that's what the little kid sees. You really, really have a kid with a real problem. And I would think that if you wanted to go to the farthest in comedy,
Combine those two.
combine sex and violence, and that is going to set people off.
Huh.
But I'll tell you, there is an unusual trend today, and boy, I am going to grandpa out on you now, with the youngsters, where bondage and discipline and sadomasochism seems to be a real thing these days. It's something that I've run across several times. I was in my 60s before this ever really was brought up to me. But it is way more common than you would think among the 20 and 30 something cent. So, sex and violence,
Yeah.
I think that what goes on sometimes is that it just is difficult for millennials in particular to connect. I think that the technology that was supposed to make us become closer has actually isolated us.
Well, I don't know if that's really true, because, I mean, I'm the same age you are. You know, back in the 60s, no one talked about sex in anywhere, in any shape or form. Even the 70s it wasn't around. It wasn't until maybe the 80s where all of a sudden you had Rock Hudson come out as being gay. Before that, gayness was never anything.
I thought it was free love in the 60s.
Yeah.
Well,
What is
but again, when you're talking about your access, like you have the internet.
All right.
Before the internet, where do you get porn? Maybe you get
Playboy.
Hustler or Playboy. But you didn't really have access to pornography until the internet hit in. And now that the internet's there, it's exploded where you can see every deviant thing that you never could imagine.
Well, you
You know,
have-
probably one thing you never see is actual real sex in porn. You never see anything that's like normal sex. It's just all freak stuff, a freak show.
According to a Mish report, that was supposed to turn us all into Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
You had VHS back in the 80s. Well, I've heard that anyhow. Sorry.
I had one saved round. A lot of comedians will, they do their best work in the shower or right when they wake up from a sleep. And so they have a notebook or a waterproof notebook or a waterproof pen of some sort while they're in the shower. They write it right there on the shower. I've heard that more than once. Or a notebook right by your bedside. Where do you think up your best stuff, and are you diligent about getting it on paper before you forget it? Because I've heard so many times it's like a slippery fish. If you let it go for a few minutes, you might forget it.
Most of what I write comes from a personal experience. I will have an interaction with someone and I'll have an ugh moment. And from that moment, that is the seed, and I work the material from there. What most people wouldn't know about comedy is that it's not getting up and telling jokes. Everything that I write is highly structured. Every bit that you hear from me had maybe 40 different options of the way it could have been crafted. And that's why you continually do things like open mics, where you get in front of people and you test out the different options that you have. I don't, if I get an idea in the shower, then I'll work on it when I get out of the shower. Most of my work is done in the evening. I end up doing a lot of writing after a show.
Oh, yeah.
Have you had the opportunity to open for anybody notable yet?
No.
My wife and I went and saw Chris Hardwick when he was in town a couple of weeks ago.
Before or after he got Me Too'd? Speaking of PC culture.
This
He's been
was,
Me Too'd for a couple of years.
Okay.
Yes,
For a while.
and most of that was an ex-girlfriend who didn't like being his ex-girlfriend. So
Same
she
with,
was-
who's the other comedian?
Lisa Kay.
No,
No, Aziz
No.
Ansari.
Aziz Ansari. Same deal. Bad date.
yeah, but yeah, he had an opening act that wasn't as good as you. So
I mean,
his opening act was very weak.
How does the pay work? I'd imagine that comics get paid nothing until they become someone that's everyone knows.
Well, that is certainly an issue. What we're talking about here is show business. And I would say 95% of comics focus on the show.
And they get
forget-
screwed on the money.
They forget about the business.
Do you have an agent?
I am my agent.
Yeah, that might not be a good, well, maybe starting off, but you would want to consider getting one later,
Absolutely.
as soon as possible.
It's being your own lawyer.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd imagine
Well-
that you don't need one until all of a sudden people say, hey, we want you to come back, and people are
Well,
Or
he's
booking
just-
to the point where you don't have enough time to
He's
do-
just now, within the last couple of weeks, broken into the niche community that's going to take him in as their son.
Yeah.
That you may or may not have even known before. You just got a gig lined up. Well, you know, but that could be a start of something. There's atheist conventions all over the place, and not just conventions, just just
Winter solstice.
yeah, exactly. Oh, there's another one.
Yep.
You know, the thing is, when you focus on both show and business, you start to look around and see what might work. There's a guy you've probably never heard of him. You in particular probably never heard of him. Joe Rogan.
No, never heard of
No,
him.
never heard of him. Well, he has a natural constituency before he ever got into the podcast stuff.
Well, he draws from 3 different fields of expertise. So he's not just a comedian, not just an MMA announcer. He brings them all in. So he's got
Exactly.
cult followings from all over.
But he knew
And Fear
that
Factor.
he had the MMA base that he could draw from. And he had the comedy, and he had Fear Factor. He was known in several different ways.
You don't want to be just known as the atheist comedian. You want a way bigger niche than that. I mean, we're growing and we're out there now, but yeah, you want to do more for the general populace.
Ricky Gervais just got
Exactly.
an award. And you don't think of him as an atheist comic.
Well, I
Bill
do,
Maher, well,
Most people don't.
most people don't. Bill Maher, yeah, of course he's did Religulous, and you know where he's at, but that's not the only way you define it.
Yeah, I see.
Maybe some marketing for you. I mean, you're ex-ad man, but an agent could come up with, like, you said you were in some movies. I was thinking like Debbie Does Dallas, but so it could be like Carl Cruz's Carrollton.
That was an
Carl Cruz is
old movie.
The original.
Yeah. No. Okay.
What's the worst you've ever bombed? And has it gotten so bad to where you just said fuck it halfway through your set and walk off?
No.
Have you ever? What's
No.
the worst you've ever bombed?
I've had people get up and walk out. I've been booed. Again, I'll go back to how I start my show. I am a 64-year-old liberal atheist born and raised in Texas.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. Carl Cruz.
You think you can fuck with me? You think you're going to say anything that's going to hurt my feelings that I haven't heard before? No.
It's not
See-
just prepping them; it's letting them know that you're got your armor on too. Yeah,
Sea Dog don't care.
yeah, that's good.
And you've only been doing it for 3 months, so you couldn't have bombed too much.
You know, I've had some ups and I've had some downs, but, you know, when I was in high school, they made the mistake of putting me in charge of entertainment for the prom. And so I did,
I
yeah,
wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
What school was that?
Richardson High School,
Okay.
RHS. I did a stand-up routine that was so horrible, my classmates booed me trying to get me off stage. And I looked at him and I thought, fuck you. If
Andy-
you think I'm going to leave because of this, I'm staying for the full thing.
Andy,
I'm not giving a second of this up.
I'm thinking you're right, Andy. That he does resemble a lot of Kaufman qualities now. Now that you mentioned it,
Yeah, as I said,
I'm
when,
beginning
when
to see
you're
it.
there trying to push the envelope of what's comedy or not, because most people, it's like, you know, what jokes about their wife, my work, the government. He's out there trying to find something to make people think.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they go there to drink, I don't want to think or whatever. It's true, he's going to get a few of them that way, but it's a special type of comedy. And I think that his comedy, if that's what he wants, the more you push that, the more you'll find where you're at. But your ultimate goal is the Andy Kaufmans,
Lenny
people
Bruce.
the Lenny Bruce, the ones that are pushing it out there.
And
flat,
nowadays,
so
there's the Eric Andre and Hannibal Buress.
I don't go for the Andy Kaufman though. Andy Kaufman was trying to get booed off the stage. You're not trying for that.
Yeah,
No, no, but-
And it's a physical, you're right.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm going for. He was doing characters
Yeah, Tony
with,
Clifton was
with physical comedy.
Yeah, but
I'm wanting to make people think.
yeah, but he was. The thing is, the thing you have in common is you're pushing the envelope to the uncomfortable.
maybe more
level.
Lenny Bruce.
So did Lenny
And
Bruce.
that's-
So did Lenny Bruce.
That's the thing. I want to go to uncomfortable, and there's a lot of people, and not that, but you're going to find a lot of doors closed because there are people that will not. I didn't find that funny. You're pushing to areas that, you know, my whole act is about torturing babies. You know, yeah, you can have a comedy routine like that, but you're going to get a bunch of people that don't want to laugh about somebody, you know, making jokes about how they're going to slice and dice babies.
You mentioned the political correctness of liberals, but it's on both sides, and it's just amazing how divided we are.
You
as
are
a
right.
country.
You are
We just
right.
can't. It's got to be a comedian's nightmare right now because there's so many taboo subjects.
Well, no, I don't really find that to be a problem. What you do have is tribes.
Yes.
It's tribalism, exactly.
Oh yeah.
And
In
you're-
group, out group.
You have Democrats, you have Republicans. You can't really make both sides happy.
Randy's right. The extremes on both sides are equally as sensitive.
But there's just more people on the extremes than there are in the middle.
The
middle is
Overton
what's
window
going
is
away.
shifted to the right now.
Yeah.
So it's not so apparent
Yeah.
on that side.
Even though I want to get back to the prom because we kind of glossed over that. But did you go to the prom with a date and did you get late
Yeah,
because
good
of
question.
the comedy?
I did not take a date to the prom,
Okay.
and I did get laid.
Awesome.
You're now my new hero.
Hey,
What year was
that's
this?
another reason to comedy.
1973.
Wow.
It was, the routine was so bad, it just so happens my parents were chaperones at this thing.
Oh boy.
My father left. He walked out on it. So it was objectively horrible.
Are there pictures of it in the yearbook?
Yes, there is one. There is one. But again, I didn't care. And if you want to really get me, tell me I can't do something.
Well, when one door closes, another opens sometimes. I don't believe in fate or destiny, but you've tapped into this channel, and certainly others will pick up on it. And we're helping promote you, and I'm honored to be able to do that. But we're the perfect opportunity. We're the perfect conduit for you. I mean, Edge is in our name, so this is perfect.
Well, again, we're all atheists here. None of us are looking for fate. But sometimes things happen at just the right time. And after being fired from a show for doing this material and meeting you the next day, it just reinforced to me that, you know, there's 7.5 billion people. How many do I have to appeal to have a rewarding career?
And we live 40 minutes from each other too, so we can do it
Yeah.
in person.
All the time. It's cool.
Now, refresh my memory. How did I reach out to you? Did I see your set and laugh my ass off and then reach out to you, or I forget how it went down?
I think you saw it. Someone that we mutually know, and I can't even remember who it was, shared it on Facebook.
Oh, that's right, and I reposted it, retweeted it.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, that was it. Well, that's awesome. Chris, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was gonna say, 'cause, you know, people have been bringing up, they've been bringing up kind of our own comparisons to who they think you resemble. Is there any comedians that you would consider particularly influential as you develop your style?
You know, it's just so classic. I think everybody has a sensibility. Some people like, well, pre-rapey Bill Cosby. They liked him, or you like Richard Pryor.
As long as you don't like post-rapey Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
That's not funny at all.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, there are probably some guys in prison right now that do like.
Oh, no shit, right?
Yeah.
There's a bit right there.
Yeah. Sam Kinison.
Yeah.
I
You know-
loved him. I thought he was very funny.
Yeah, Richard Pryor, George Carlin. You know, I am less a fan of frenetic physical comedy than I am thoughtful comedy. Lenny Bruce, you know, I want people to have a good time and to think. So,
Did you
anyone?
You ever see that guy? What is it, Bean or something like that? His thing about hell or something like that. Welcome to Hell.
Rowan Atkinson?
Yeah,
Mr. Bean?
Mr.
He's
Bean?
Mr. Bean.
Yeah, Rowan Atkinson.
And he basically he's dressed up as the devil, and you know welcome.
He was one of those types also, that's right.
I mean, that's one of the funniest things I've ever said. He's basically welcoming the newcomers.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen that bit, that's a funny atheist bit I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's a genius.
Of comedy about, you know, religious belief or not belief or whatever. And what was that thing about, you know, one of the people says, so do you have a bathroom I can use? And the guy says, oh, you should have read your Bible carefully. It said damnation without relief. You know?
I remember it now, yeah. That was a good one.
And it was just you know, very clever little things he had on it. They haven't seen it. It's kind of like, it's amazing how many people in the 20s have never seen Who's on First with Abbott and Costello. A lot have never
Still
seen that.
holds up to this day.
You know, watching your bit, for some reason I went to memory of Gilbert Gottfried, who's not a favorite comedian of mine, but he holds the distinction of being the first comedian to make a joke about 9/11. And in a way.
Well, Bill Maher got fired over it.
Yep. From politically incorrect.
Right. They bounced him off of network television. That's why he's on HBO now.
No,
Yep.
his was a little different because he was kind of attacking American soldiers. His bit was about American soldiers being cowards because
his
they
bit was
fired
more-
from ships in the ocean and not fighting face to face. That was his bit. But Gilbert Gottfried just made a
that
joke
sounds
about.
real good. If you like to fire face to face, why don't you put a uniform on? Real good?
Yeah, that's what he got
Me,
fired.
I'm going to be a big. If I can kill you from over here rather than get in your face, that's how I'm going to fight you. I mean,
But the whole deal is taking on controversial topics, things that are, and, you know, and taking one position or another is one thing, but saying this is just not allowed to be talked about from any side should be ridiculous. Anything should be on the table.
everything should be on the table, but there is a period of. I mean, imagine if 9/11 happened and during the towers fall, and you're saying, "Hey, pancake time," or when you're just doing something
right.
that's very inappropriate as it's happening. You know, there needs to be a little bit of respect to those that have died at the time. But the idea of, oh, you can never do a 9/11 joke. Is it a day? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? There is no time frame
Set
on that.
grace period.
There's going to be someone that does it too soon for
Well-
most people. And there's probably going to be a comedian that wants to be the first one just to break the ice.
And notoriety to
Yeah.
get the buzz, but it can be like Randy was saying, it's very cathartic. Bringing it up in the comedic context can help the healing process.
Yeah.
But nobody wanted to be the first one to risk their careers,
Yeah.
and he was willing to do it because
Yeah.
I heard an interview later on where he said it needed to be done. He didn't think the joke was all that particularly good, but it needed to get out there, and then suddenly there was like a big relief of, okay, now this can be joked about.
But he also got fired over a joke. You know, he used to.
I think he's been fired a few times.
But after the tsunami in Japan, he made
Yeah.
a joke about that, and that got him bounced out of. I'm not sure. Maybe it was Geico.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. He was doing.
Who,
Bill Maher?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Gilbert
Gilbert Godfrey, yeah.
And both he and Mar, they still have gigs. They still have work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't think.
Yeah, a lot of-
I totally see you maybe headline, opening up for someone at the American Atheist Convention next year.
Or you
Something
can be
like
the next
that.
Aflac duck, apparently.
Well, yeah, because
That'd be even better money, yeah.
you know, everyone's got to have the ultimate goal of being an athlete.
Well, that's better money than what
No,
American Atheist
no,
would pay.
I don't want to be the Affleck duck. That's,
I would do the Affleck duck
No.
naked.
it'd be like,
On the
I don't want
50-yard
to be
line of
on
the
the
Super Bowl.
commercial with the progressive lady. Sure, her 15 minutes of fame died
Flo?
so long ago.
Oh,
Sometimes when people talk about 9/11, they talk about the people in the towers, but don't everybody forgets the people in the airplane. So I've never heard anything about what happened with the flight insurance and everything. Did anybody?
you're thinking up a bit, aren't you? You're
Just asking a question. Is that
You're
does
thinking
anybody
up a
ever
bit
say
right now.
anything about the flight insurance?
Well, I think that you have just a little minimum amount of insurance on your ticket or whatever. Basically, you get a lawsuit is what you do.
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
Unfortunately,
they definitely got
that was
lost.
probably classified as an act of war, which means you get shit. Because they're
definitely
gonna
got
find
shit,
some
too.
way to
They
you know.
got-
Not
they got
natural
fully
or
paid for what
mechanical
you're saying.
or pilot error.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, but I've got a serious question. Is is success for you as a comedian?
This
Sex-
success.
sex-
Why, yes,
You're right.
It's a
Why,
major
yes,
part
it
of why
is.
one would do
Yeah,
this.
you're right.
My wife's been out of town for a few days, so my brain's going to weird places. All right, so is success for you as a comedian only defined monetarily, or could you do this and never make any money and still feel like you've accomplished what you wanted to accomplish?
I think they go hand in glove. I don't think that you can do what I would like to do and not make some money at it.
Right.
You know, it's because if you're doing the kind of things I want to do, they pay.
If you're good at it, you'll get paid, is what you're saying.
Right, and as I said earlier, people tend to focus on the show part of this. I focus on the business as well. And you'll hear stories about people that don't make money in comedy for 5 years.
We've been
In
doing the
which case
show
you'll be
almost 3
69.
years and we still haven't made jack squat.
I've made money in comedy. I've been paid to do it.
I bet you made more in your first 3 months than we've made in our first 2.5 years. I'll be willing to bet you.
You hear that, patrons?
Yes. That means get off your ass, people.
Yeah.
Is that a broader audience?
I can answer that question. I always thought it'd be neat to be a comedian. When I was, in my teens and 20s, I'd be a comedian, it'd be fun, Johnny Carson shows and stuff. That'd be pretty. To me, if I could be someone that could go out in front of a crowd and kill them every time I go out there, just roll the aisles, and never got paid a dime for it, I'd be happy.
No
as a
shit.
clam.
That's a good
I would
point.
be happy as a clam
That's a good
if
point.
I could make them laugh like crazy and never got paid. But to me, the biggest success was, and it's gone now. I heard that this is back in Johnny Carson days, so 1990 and before, and he was on from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He would bring comedians out, but you had to like kind of make yourself before he would bring you out for the first time. So he had a bunch of groups out there scouring the country for newcomers, and if they got a chance to come on out, one of the things on his stage was there was a little star where you stood. And I always thought that if I ever get out there on the Johnny Carson show and stand on that star, that would be the pinnacle, that's the Oscar of being a comedian.
I bet that star's
I don't
still
know
there.
if it's there anymore for the night show, but to stand on the star, to me was, you've won the Oscar.
That's the benchmark. That's the milestone that a lot of comedians went by back
Yeah.
then.
You
And-
got it to Johnny Carson show, you had made it.
And the subsequent one would be because every once in a while he would invite that comedian to sit down on the couch.
And then
That
you really
was-
did.
Then
Yeah.
you are the shit.
If you make it to the couch, you are a made comedian.
Yep.
Well, let's be realistic. You're 64 years old. You're starting this thing as a career. It's only throughout 5 years. 5 years from now, you'll be 69 years old. At a point, can you say I've been successful even though I never turned it into a career because I've changed a lot of minds, or can you only be successful if you can turn it into a money to where you can support yourself?
I feel successful now.
That's good.
I'm doing what I want to do. I'm making it happen. But it's an interesting concept that you've got on if you could fill a club and make those people laugh and not get paid a penny for it.
I would probably pay money to be that good.
Great.
We should set that up.
I will be.
Yeah, I pay everyone
I'll be
$100 to
arranged.
show up, and I just read the phone book, and they're going
I'll
nuts.
be there, I promise.
Yeah.
It's impossible to do that unless you want to get fucked by business people.
Sure.
Because you have to be able to pull those people into that club.
Yeah.
And how does that happen? Now, the advantage that I have is Dallas has got a sea of comedians. No one knows who they are.
Right. I was gonna say. I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, so you're doing a show at Hyenas at midnight on
Yeah,
Sundays.
nobody knows you.
No one knows who you are.
So being in that tight little atheist niche sometimes can be a boon, because there aren't that many. I can only think of one other, Keith Lowell Jensen. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, I have.
He's the only other actual where you think atheist first and then comedian.